The question of the evening that I would like to bring up on June 29th, 2025. Thanks for rejoining the Gregory Wright Show. The question of the evening is, did the state of Israel play the United States of America like a flute, like a fiddle, in the context of everything that's been going on with Iran over the past 2 weeks, right? Did BiBi play Trump? Did Benjamin Netanyahu from Israel play Trump like a fiddle? And what I mean by that is, we're going to get into something, and as a United States citizen and a United States taxpayer, regardless if I voted for somebody or I did not vote for anybody, when we're talking about the President of the United States and the implications that the President's decisions have on its citizens nationwide, we should all be in open dialogue to talk about those types of decisions that can potentially get us into a forever war like we did in Afghanistan, like kind of what happened in Vietnam and other wars. We are at a point where we are exhausted as United States citizens. We are exhausted of wars, long drawn out wars. People get unalived. Money is being spent that we can't afford. We're not focusing on domestic issues that I think are more pressing than international issues, unless international conflict has the potential to dampen or cripple our investments abroad. And so let me just go through a rundown that I wrote down prior to hitting click and play on this video. See, Benjamin Netanyahu was losing popularity among his voter base in Israel for several reasons, but I will only list a few. So prior to June 13th, the reason why Benjamin Netanyahu was losing popularity among his voter base is because they thought that he didn't do enough to prevent the Hamas's 7 October 2023 attack on Israel. It was very devastating. It was very brutal. It was very disgusting. It was very nasty. I purposely did not go through the video images and pictorial images of that event because I don't want that nastiness in my spirit. Secondly, Benjamin Netanyahu's voting bloc think that he didn't do too much to get the Israeli hostages back from Hamas in a satisfactory way. I believe that there's still Israeli hostages in Hamas's possession. And then Benjamin Netanyahu was facing corruption charges internationally and domestically within his country. And so fast forward to June 13th, which was only a couple of weeks ago. There are reports out there that Benjamin Netanyahu saw that his grip on power in Israel was slowly or really quickly slipping away because his voter bloc was criticizing him on a various number of issues. So he decides on June 13th to attack Iran. claiming that, hey, Iran cannot have a nuclear bomb. They cannot enrich uranium to make a nuclear bomb. If they do have a nuclear bomb, then Iran will be a threat in the region. And Iran has been, especially the Ayatollah and other fractions of that country, were on the internet saying death to America, death to Israel, and all this other kind of stuff. So if Iran has a nuclear bomb, then they're going to carry out the death to Israel, death to America. So, that couldn't happen. Right? And so another reason why Israel attacked Iran, because it was reported that Iran supported Hamas, who attacked Israel. Hamas was considered a proxy to Iran in their attack on Israel. So fast forward again, 21 to 23 June, the United States of America bombed 3 Iranian uranium enrichment sites in Iran. Right? You all heard about it. It happened last weekend, and there's all this hubbub and AOC calling for impeachment and all that. It wasn't a declaration of war, and I actually supported it. It wasn't a declaration of war. It was a strategic strike on uranium enrichment facilities in Iran that, according to Trump's policies, and he ran on this, is that Iran was not to have a nuclear weapon. That's plain and clear. Right? So no nukes in Iran. Trump ran on that. No Iranian threat in the region. Trump ran on that, because we got to maintain peace at all costs. And lastly, Israel didn't have the military capability to hit those uranium enrichment sites in Iran the way the United States hit them. They don't have B-51s. They don't have B-52 bombers, bunker busting bombs that can decimate a mountain. So they needed the United States help. I got it. But we have to be careful into being sucked into what is now being called for regime change in Iran. I am glad that President Trump is stepping away from the talks of regime change, because I don't think it needs to happen. I think the Iranian nuclear sites have been set back by several years, and in the next year or so, or periodically, we'll assess their nuclear bomb making capability down the road. But for now, I think that there should be peace in the region. As a matter of fact, there is I think a 60-day peace agreement between Israel and Iran right now. So all this talk about regime change, we need to pump our brakes and so to allow the United States to focus inwardly on the Big Beautiful Bill Act and pass this legislation through the U.S. Congress. We need to get back to deporting criminal, illegal aliens that have been running rampant in this country for the last 4.5 years. We need to get them out to their country of origin. And we need to quell all of this protesting, these violent protesters across the United States, burning down businesses, burning down cop cars, and all this other kind of stuff is not helpful in order to help the United States become more of a sovereign nation. And so the Trump admin said no, along with other common sense Americans, about Iranian regime change. If Israel wants Iranian regime change, they need to do it by themselves. They don't need our help. Okay? And so I agree with that. As far as Trump is concerned, Trump admin is concerned, and all common sense Americans are concerned, the 12-day war with Iran is over with no regime change. Okay, because all regime change is going to get us is another Iraq situation, and we do not want to go down that path. And so currently, BiBi Netanyahu is experiencing a boost in his popularity among his voter support, among his base within Israel. No surprise. But the question is how long will that boost last? And then lastly, what we're going to do, we're going to get into a video on X that I came across last week, and I should have played it last week, but things happened so quickly I didn't get a chance to. Matt Gaetz, he's a former U.S. House of Representative that basically got primaried because he was exhibiting toxic behavior by setting up the conditions to oust Kevin McCarthy, the former Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives. He set the conditions to oust Kevin McCarthy, and that led the way for Mike Johnson to be the current U.S. House of Representatives right now. So the current Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives now. So before I go down the road too much, I want to play this video by Matt Gaetz, and he further breaks down what I just said.
Israel didn't kick their regime change habit with Iraq or Libya or Syria, it seems. They need another fix. But Matt, this isn't a regime change war. It's about Iran's nuclear program. I wish that were true, but it's not. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene opined that maybe Netanyahu is so feisty about regime change in Iran because he was facing regime change in Israel.
It's not being reported enough that on Thursday, they held a vote in the Knesset, and it was only by 2 votes that Netanyahu won. If he had lost, they would have had another election in Israel, and the polling shows that he would lose if an election were to occur today. That vote happened last Thursday. And then Friday, Israel attacked Iran. That's why the bombs are falling, and it seems very political.
Here's how you know this isn't about Iran's nuclear program. We aren't taking these steps to force denuclearization where the threat is higher and the leaders are even crazier. Take North Korea. North Korea's nuclear program is a far greater threat to the United States than Iran's. It is not even close. I know, I've had the briefings. I was on the House Armed Services Committee for 8 years. Iran has neither the bomb, the delivery system, nor the re-entry vehicle that you would need for any intercontinental ballistic missile to launch and re-enter orbit. North Korea has all three. North Korea could launch a nuclear weapon at mainland United States today. And we've probably got the ability to knock it out of the sky, but Iran can't even get their bird in the air. Iran's Death to America chant isn't really my bag, obviously, but Kim in the Hermit Kingdom points to U.S. cities like Los Angeles and San Diego and Seattle on maps, and he openly discusses wiping off major U.S. population centers from existence. Of course, we aren't looking to drop 100 bunker busters in the mountains of North Korea. President Trump took other brilliant diplomatic steps to constrain North Korea's hostilities. And the same could be done with Iran. But Matt, Iran has kicked out IAEA inspectors. There could be portions of their nuclear program that are secret. A nuclear secret in the Middle East. How about it? If the world is interested in a secret nuclear program in the Middle East, there is a country that won't allow any international inspectors. Israel. Israel has a nuclear weapon. Did you know that? I do. They allow no inspections. They are fully secretive and clandestine about it, and the Americans are fully aware. You know what? I don't even blame Israel for this. If they want to develop a nuclear weapon, if they had the blessing to do so secretly, I'm not in judgment of that. But to drag the world into a regime change war over secret nuclear weapons, when you have secret nuclear weapons, is a bit hypocritical. President Trump is the kind of guy who never gives up on a deal. Throughout his life, he's probably made deals and made lots of money on them, even when others walked away or didn't see value in a transaction. So here's a deal. How about Iran and Israel both give up their secret nuclear weapon programs? If Trump got that deal, he wouldn't only get the Nobel Peace Prize, they'd probably name it the Trump Peace Prize forevermore. And it's not that crazy to think about Israel denuclearizing. Look at the model in South Africa. South Africa denuclearized right before they stopped being an apartheid state. Prominent voices in Israel and America have called for Trump to recognize Israel's sovereignty over Judea and Samaria, which some people call the West Bank. If that happens, Israel will have to let the 5 to 6 million people who live there vote. And they don't want to do that. I'm not calling Israel an apartheid state. Right now, I don't think they are. But if they are ruling the West Bank, as the neocons would suggest, then the South Africa model for denuclearization is not totally off base. There's a certain bravado at the beginning of a Middle East regime change war. There's enthusiasm, bold predictions of swift victory, and usually a total misunderstanding of what happens next. And the leading voice championing regime change wars for decades has been Fox News.
We must do the right thing. Saddam is evil and a threat to the world. He must go. We should have just taken 1441 and rammed it down Saddam's throat. It is dangerous to allow an evil dictator to remain in power. Now, if you want a chance that Saddam would never use those deadly weapons, that is your right in a free society, and I respect that right. But I don't want to chance that. Saddam Hussein is the largest army in the Middle East, all right? He has developed these weapons for no purpose. He doesn't need them defensively, all right? He doesn't need them at all. He's used them, as you know, all right? And he's invaded 2 other countries. But this isn't enough for you to have him removed. I think you're dead wrong. I don't think that there's any reason on this earth that man should remain in power. In the end, Saddam will be removed from power, and the world will be a better place.
Tragically, we will lose American lives, but it will be brief. We're going to find out massive evidence of weapons of mass destruction.
I am confident that all those things that you predict are going to come true, and a lot of people that have been laying out the case against this are going to be very embarrassed.
The Iraqi regime did not and has not disarmed. Saddam Hussein is deemed by the White House a threat to American national security, a brutal, murderous dictator, and a menace to the world. It is the hope of the administration and the goal of the war planners that disarmament and regime change be accomplished as swiftly as practical. Some number of our sons and daughters, our brothers and sisters will give their lives for the cause of freedom.
Things that we haven't seen in the past.
So, in the lead up to the invasion of Iraq, you had this drumbeat by Fox News. You had this drumbeat by members of Congress. You had this drumbeat of everyone else who had an influential voice in 2003 to go to war with Iraq based on what? Based on speculation that they had weapons of mass destruction. Comes to find out that they did not have weapons of mass destruction. Okay? How do I know? I'm an armchair quarterback. We can look back. Hindsight is 2020, right? And then we spent another 20 plus years over there trying to build their infrastructure, rebuild their economy, or whatever the case is. We were stuck there, and then we got hit by IEDs. We got countless American lives lost. Why? Because you had people on Fox News and other news stations that were bloodthirsty for war. And we do not and we cannot make the same mistake now with Iran.
Very accurate weapons, very lethal. The Moab is a daisy cutter on steroids, and Iraq is not prepared for what's going to be thrown at them.
Oh, Iraq wasn't prepared. Daisy cutter? This is how easily the so-called foreign policy experts believed we would carve our way through Iraq. I saw how many of our bravest patriots were pushing up daisies as a consequence of that war. I went to their funerals. I visited their grave sites. I saw the true cost of a flawed regime change war in the Middle East. The problem is we had no plan to get out. Iraq cost America $3 trillion, and this distraction and disaster aided in both the rise of China and ISIS. Whoever was telling you that we had the ability to topple a regime in Iraq and then come out with something better was either one, lying to you, or two, so wholly ignorant about the country they were invading that their lack of knowledge or curiosity or understanding led to blood and terrorism and chaos. So as we approach the 2025 vintage of regime change wars in Iran, I wonder if those now cheerleading attacks on Iran know anything about the country they want to topple.
How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah,
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's,
because,
it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay,
it's not
okay.
Even... You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government, and you don't know anything about the country.
It's easy to sit in a senator's office or a perch in the Pentagon and send out tweets, press releases, and blustered statements about war. Nobody is shooting missiles at you in a Fox News studio. People barely even shoot divergent opinions at you in that myopathy. That's the comfortable political move in the short term, to support regime change wars. But that comfort is not shared by those who have to go fight in these wars and die in them, and many will.
All right, so I think that was a pretty interesting take by Matt Gaetz. God bless him. I think he should have been a much louder voice a lot sooner before we sent the B-52 bombers out there to Iran. And so I'll close with this. We need to be careful with our allies, especially Israel. There's a school of thought out there that just because somebody's our ally, that leaves our hands tied and our lips zipped as far as critiquing them when they're going down the wrong path. If your voter base, BiBi Netanyahu, is displeased at your performance, then maybe you should look in the mirror and take stock of what the heck did you do to lead up to that dissatisfaction among your voter base, and then make those types of changes. Now, if it's too late, then listen, you just need to bow out and groom somebody else to take your spot. And you can enjoy your grandkids, you can enjoy your great grandkids and the life of luxury on those beautiful beaches you got out there in Tel Aviv. Okay? But don't go ahead and try to play the American people, play the American president into fighting your wars, bailing you out, right? We as United States citizens and the president, the vice president, all his cabinet members, we have to be very, very careful with our allies, because I think our allies could be more dangerous than our adversaries in some cases. In this case, most likely because, if we were led down the gravy train of regime change, we would have been headed for another 20-year war. So we need to be very, very, very careful and skeptical about tiptoeing around other people's business, because once we accept that we're going to help a nation like Israel or another one of our allies, Canada, we have to do a full examination of what that's going to mean for the American people in the long term. And so we need to start pushing back real hard and focus on domestic, United States domestic issues. You know, our border was non-existent the last 4 years. We have potentially military-age males by the tens of millions in our country. Some, we don't know where some of them are. And there could be sleeper cells in our country as we speak, waiting for the word, waiting for the cell phone to go off to cause more catastrophic damage to our infrastructure. So, hey, thanks for joining, and I really appreciate the patronage and the support for my channel. Spread the word, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.